everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. This is part 4 of a partner video series. We talked in part 1, introduction and recognizing and acknowledging things and feelings partner may feel. We talked in part 2, part 1, phase 1, coming out, and what may come up for you in the part 1 coming out. Then we talked about in the second part, after the coming out, the initial shock tends to settle in, and as a result of that initial shock, the things you may experiencing, such as catastrophizing or denial. Now, at this phase of transition process with the partner, we're stepping into what I call negotiating phase. In negotiating phase, this is when your partner came out to you already, like I said in part 2, and like I said in a part 3 video, your feelings had settled in, and as a result you had initial shock and you had a reaction out of that shock, and you either most likely gave your partner an ultimatum, or you were overly supportive, or maybe you experienced something else that I did not describe, but those were the two most common things people tend to experience. In the part negotiating phase of transition within a relationship, now what's happening is that things are settled down even more. And now things are most likely happening. Perhaps your partner has already started doing certain things. Maybe they have already come out to the rest of the family. Maybe they have come out to the kids. Maybe they came out at work. Maybe they have started hormone therapy. Maybe they are considering doing other things. But your partner is also starting to do a little bit more in relationship to their gender. And as a result, you're starting to realize, okay, things are happening, things are taking place, there's changes, this is really happening. This is almost like an acceptance phase, but not quite, because you haven't really fully yet grasped the whole nature of the situation or how you feel about the situation. So what is negotiating phase? Well, negotiating phase is, it's a phase where also a lot of feelings come up for you. You're starting to assess for yourself as a partner. What's fair? What's not fair? How is this fair to me? This seems like they're making a choice to do this. Choice, the word choice tends to come up a lot. You choose to do this. This is a choice. You're choosing to hurt us. You're choosing to hurt your family. You're choosing to live this lifestyle. You're choosing to transition. The word lifestyle comes up as if, again, this is something that people just tend to try on. So a lot of feelings tend to come up. Anger comes up. Feelings of resentment and contempt may come up. And these are going to set negotiations. In a video after the next one, I'll be talking about finally compromising, which is comes with a form of acceptance. Now, compromise is going to be very different from negotiating. Compromise is win-win. In here, what you're doing at this stage, oftentimes what partners do, is negotiating. It is negotiations that are rising out of the feelings you feel. And a lot of times feelings are just that, they're feelings, they're valid, and they're absolutely our truth in what we feel. But a lot of times they can be supercharged with a lot of pain and a lot of hurt, a lot of unprocessed anger. So the result in negotiations are again going to have a lot of this is not fair type of undertone. You're going to start assessing. You're also going to start looking at what you put in. Remember how I said relationships are always investments. One way or another, they're investments of our time, they're investments of what we give, they're investments of our love, they're investments of our effort. There's no such thing as unconditional love. I don't believe in unconditional love. I think all love, one way or another, is conditional. We're human beings. What is like unconditional love? I just cannot fathom it. So for me, in my opinion, everything is conditional. We're in a relationship because we're giving something, we're expecting something in result. When we're treating our partner nicely, we're expecting to be treated nicely. When we're there for our partners when they're ill, we're hoping they'll be there for us when we're ill. So everything tends to carry kind of a balanced exchange. Sometimes that balance is not always fair, right? Sometimes we give more than we receive. Sometimes we receive more than we give. That's just natural part of being in a relationship. So during this time of negotiation phase, what you're doing is you're doing an assessment. It's almost like you're looking at the quickbooks of your marriage or your relationship, however long you've been together, and you're looking at the quickbooks and you're assessing, okay, during the time of my relationship, and you may be, by the way, doing it subconsciously, it may not even be fully conscious. You're thinking, well, I have been loyal to you, I have been a good parent to our children. I have done all of the things. I have sacrificed my career. I heard so many things. People tend to feel what's fair, what's not fair. I gave up my life for you. I gave up this for you. It's all an attempt to balance things out. It's all an attempt to, for us to make sense of why do I have to go through this? Undertone of all of it is, why do I have to go through this? This is so unfair. And the truth is, it's not about fair. And the more we try to cling to fairness, the harder it is going to be. This is why we tend to negotiate. We try to get something back for something drastic as my partner is transitioning. That's going to make in our headspace feel like we actually got some kind of chunk of some kind of equity. So we feel somewhat at peace, somewhat attested. But the reality is that it doesn't work like that, Marriages and relationships are composed of many things, and I bet in the past you already have gone through the stages of what's fair, what's not fair on a smaller scale without even realizing it, because it was so small you didn't pay attention to it. When things are really small, we tend to be more flexible, we tend to be more generous with giving, right? For example, a partner might be maybe losing their job, and you may have been the one who stepped in, and because it was temporarily and for a short period of time, you made peace with that and you were okay with that. So it's okay to be, notice how it's okay to be generous with small things, but with the bigger things as human beings we struggle with the generosity. So this is where the negotiations are going to come in. During this phase you are trying to assess what's fair, and truth is things are not going to feel fair. Things never feel fair. When your trans partner comes out to you and they realize especially they need to go through gender transition, things are just never going to be fair. It is always going to feel unfair. I'm sorry guys, there's a light in my let me move a little bit in my face, so I apologize if this is distracting you. It's distracting me as I look at myself in here. There's never going to be any sense of fair, so forget the word fair. Just try to take it out of your vocabulary, because it's going to make things that much more harder for you. What the best thing to do during this phase, the negotiating phase, is instead of thinking what's fair or what's not fair, and instead of bargaining with your partner, is just to really assess for yourself, where am I at with my relationship? What does this relationship still means to be? Remember, you always have a sense of agency. You always have a sense of ability to make decisions for yourself if this is for you or if this is not for you. So this is the time to really ask yourself, what do I have invested in this marriage? In a sense of relationships that tend to survive transition. Survive it, for one of the biggest factors is what is their emotional traction is. If couple before transitioning already had a solid emotional balance, meaning, I always say this analogous to emotional bank account. If your emotional bank account is full versus being net negative, meaning there's a lot of good memories, you already had a really good marriage, you are a couple that when you have arguments or fights, you tend to do repairs, you tend to talk to each other, you tend to communicate, you care about each other, you love each other. So your emotional bank account that makes it out of all of those things is positive, the more likely the relationship is going to make a transition, because this is going to be something that nobody's going to want to lose. Also, this is what's going to give you as a partner empathy and compassion towards your trans partner. However, if you're feeling a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, if you are remembering all of the things you've done for your trans partner in the past and how this adds another iceberg and all of those things, how already your life with this person has been unfair and has been shitty and has been whatever it is you're thinking, and now you're telling yourself, and now you're telling me you want to transition. If this is the mindset, if this is the dialogue you're having with yourself, I want you to recognize how much resentment there already is. Chances are that resentment has already been there over the years. And what's important to recognize is that the relationship sounds like is already on thin ice. And this is just something that's going to probably crumble it for the better, because resentment is a hard thing to get out of. A lot of times couples don't want to acknowledge that they already harbored a lot of negativity toward each other and their emotional bank is net negative when a partner comes out. They don't want to admit it. And then they end their relationship and they blame it on gender issues. And they say, this is why. Instead of taking accountability and saying, let's be honest with each other. Our relationship has not been the best. We have not been the same for X amount of years. We have not been caring nor loving. We've been pretending to be a couple. This sounds like perhaps a silver lining here. This sounds like an opportunity for us to part, maybe find something amicable, and for you to pursue what's important to you, and for me to pursue what's important to me. But we don't do that. Why we don't do that? Because we're afraid, because we don't want to be alone, because we also have created a sense of codependency. So this is one of the things to really start to assess during this time period. Where's your negotiation and sense of fairness comes from? Is it already coming from the past hurts and pains? What is it telling you about already the relationship? Let's not blame everything on transition. This is very easy during this phase to start blaming things on transition. On the other hand, it could be that you do have a very good emotional bank, and things of pain and hurt are not coming from the past, coming from the present, because you're terrified that whatever your partner is telling you is going to shake up what you invested. Totally understandable. I totally get that. So this is going to be the negotiation phase. Again, a lot of fair, what's not fair, a lot of bargaining. This is when couples start to fight. This is when bickering starts to happen a lot. This is when couples start going into couples therapy and seeking support versus going from the very beginning, from the get-go, trying to figure out what are we going to do. And again, a lot of undertones of this is fair, this is not fair. How could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? How could you not be supportive? How could you be supportive? A lot of that type of language is flying around. Very, very common. The best thing I recommend for you, for couples to do in this scenario, for partners of trans and trans partners, is instead of being so in a sense of righteousness and what's right and what's not right, recognize this is not going to be fair. Nothing about this is going to be fair. It's not about fair. And just ask yourself honestly as a partner, where am I at in this relationship? And be really honest with yourself. And you know what, even if you've been, and I've seen people who've been together for 20, 30, 40 years, adult children, they already have adult children. They have a shared house or shared property. And, they sit down and sometimes they say, let's admit it. Our relationship hasn't been great. This is just disrupts it even more. But I don't want a divorce. Divorce is costly. I don't want to separate and split assets. So how can we find a way where we can preserve certain security bases for ourselves, but also recognize this is just not going to work out. Let's not pretend like we're going to try to make it work out. That's okay too. Be honest with each other. Negotiating phase is an opportunity, instead of what's fair, what's not fair, is to ask you, what are my needs right now? Not what's fair, not what I want. What are my needs right now? What are my needs right now as a person? So start looking into those things. Start having an open conversation and dialogue. If you're watching this, comment below. Let me know, what are your thoughts on this? Did you, as a partner, get stuck in that fair, not fair negotiating technique? Where did that come from? Did some of you realize that it's coming from already accumulated net negative bank account? Or did your account was overly positive? If you're a trans partner, also comment below and let me know, what was this period like for you? This is a very common negotiating phase before we get into compromising phase. Compromise is a much, much healthier phase. That's the phase when all of you are starting to really ask yourselves those more mature, more compassionate win-win type of questions. But negotiating phase is very common. This is a good phase to seek therapy. This is a good phase to start asking yourself whether you're being truthful about the quality of your relationship to begin with, before you can even ask yourself, can I stay with this person through gender transition? So stick around. We'll talk about some more things in the next video.